Well, hello, you guys. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. Good to have you aboard. Tonight, we're talking about fire departments. We're talking about Eugene Springfield Fire Department and a new fee that the Eugene City Council put on their side of the fire department. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I brought someone in who knows what they're talking about, and they'll explain this to you. I'm sure I've already had emails from people saying, oh, here we go, another tax. It is a fee, but I understand the world of taxes and fees, and they all kind of end up in the same place. But there's some ideas floating around out there, some of how the fire department could actually be funded that might be a little more straightforward and understandable and get it out from under any kind of city leadership so that they could kind of do the business of fires. And it's not an unusual thing. There's fire districts all over the country and all over Oregon. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Our sponsors, Chris Kendall, Dr. Michael Bratlin. We're looking for the best dentist in Eugene Springfield. He is your man, and he also cares a lot about conversation. And he is a huge proponent of police and fire services. In fact, when the BLM riots were going on, not that this has to do with fires, Dr. Bratlin put up a billboard in Springfield to tell people that he supported public safety. So that's the kind of guy he is. Also, Albert Taylor, Endless Possibilities, working with people in Eugene and Springfield with developmental and intellectual disabilities. If you're looking for a new career, something that will make you feel like you really did something when you go home, they're an interesting organization. They do some really great work. All right, that's our sponsors. Let's get right to our guy. Here's Brett Deedon, Eugene firefighter and president of the Eugene Springfield Fire Department. Is that what it is? Fire Department? They were separate when I was there in the business. They were two separate entities, and I always thought they should join. And then Randy Groves and got that all put together. And probably one of the smartest things that ever happened to the fire department, I would guess.
Yeah, I actually grew up. So my dad was a firefighter over in Springfield, joined there in 1986 at the age of 19. And I grew up on the Springfield side of things, lived over on the Eugene side, and kind of got to know it through this whole process. And so departments merged for Eugene Springfield Fire now. But I'm happy to be here today to kind of talk about, it's kind of a quasi-merger. We're kind of stuck at this point.
Yeah. So talk about this fee that Eugene City Council, has been looking at this, and, like the Eugene City Council does, they look at things for a long time, lots of studies, lots of any kind of study they can do. And which is good, I guess. You make sure you're doing close to the right thing. But this fee, how does this work, Brett?
Yeah, so the fire fee is kind of grabbed from a model. It's used in a couple departments in Oregon and also in Washington. So the idea is that they kind of tack on a fee to your utilities, typically based off of like a square footage model of houses or business, and that goes in to supplement the fire budget. So that's the idea with this fee, is that essentially for Eugene people, you're going to see that on your e-web bill. That'll be an additional cost on there, and that's going to be a fee that goes to the fire department. Estimated to raise about $10 million in funds to go straight to the fire department.
So it's based on the size of your house or business?
Correct.
Square footage?
Square footage, yep.
What is the average that they're saying this is going to cost?
Yeah, the numbers I was looking at was between $10 and $20. Businesses, I think you go up to $30 just above there. Is going to be about the cost for that'll be tacked on. So it's every month. So at the end of the year, I mean, that's why you kind of hear it be referred to as kind of like the cost of a Netflix bill.
So Eugene, the city's got some budget problems right now.
That's
and the library services, they have the park services. People really like that. And then you guys come up. What is your shortfall? What do you guys need to operate? Because you're not operating at capacity, and you guys are overdoing it, as I understand.
Yeah. So one of the pieces to understand with this, so we can go into a bit of the complexities on this, is the fee is implemented on the Eugene side. So each city has to come up with their budget to be able to support the fire department, and it's proportional. So Eugene is a much bigger city than Springfield. So proportionally, they're contributing their piece in there, which is about 74 to 76%. to the fire department. Springfield covers the rest of that piece as well, for their portion of it. So when Eugene's trying to figure out how they can afford that portion of it, they're trying to cover like the stations and apparatus and personnel on their side. Because when you get hired on the fire department right now, you get hired on as a Eugene firefighter or a Springfield firefighter. But you can't tell that on the line. So as Eugene tries to figure out how to do that, we get all of our money out of the general fund, the payroll tax, and now the fire fee, all combined together. So these budget shortfalls that happen is basically them trying to figure out how to balance their budget. The issue is that since the 1980s, we've had 1,000% increase in call volume, and we've only added one firefighter during that time.
What?
Yeah.
So when obviously with what's been going on in California, that takes us right there.
Mhm.
Going, they were not prepared. And if something happened in Eugene, what would happen in Eugene if, there's not a Yapoa Terrace, let's say that's a skyscraper for Eugene.
Yeah.
If that caught on fire, what do you guys have the ability? Do you have the resources that you need? Or in Springfield, if it was a high rise?
Yeah, so obviously Eugene's starting to build up. It's part of that growth pattern that they're having more high-rise buildings. If we look at Yapoa Terrace as one example, the national standards for that is 43 firefighters to respond. That's just to be able to get into the building, be able to address evacuations, to be able to get to the fire, put water on the fire, all of those aspects that go into that. On any given day in Eugene, we have 38 firefighters. So we are short of hitting those national standards. Not to mention that like national standards has 4-person engines. We've been operating 3-person engines, and there's no future being able to grow that to actually fit those standards.
So Brett, some of our questions on here, they're not questions, they're saying, oh, here we go, Eugene, tax, tax, tax. Eugene's answer to everything is a tax so they can continue to spend.
So some of the issues that Eugene and Springfield will be coming up on this as well. I mean, it's a discussion throughout Oregon. Is Measure 5 and Measure 50 in the 90s really constrained as far as what's income looked like for cities based on the property taxes. So those constraints that are happening are hitting more now based off the inflation data that's happening, and it was bound to happen at some point. So as much as there is a staying within budgets, that is a problem that's happening. And so that's why we kind of come back at a district and be like, pull us out of this mess. Let's just make sure we have our proportion.
So when does this be? Is this now a done deal? According to what happened Monday?
So it passed. So the fire fee would go into effect later this year. There's an opportunity for a referendum if it's chosen by the people to be able to sign that, to put it to a vote of the people.
Is that happening? Are people talking about that?
It's definitely a discussion piece at this point. I've heard members throughout the community of discussion on it.
So there's people in town who are saying we want to put a referendum out there that says let the people decide, not the city council, whether you're going to add this fee on. The problem for you guys is you will lose funding if this doesn't happen.
So that kind of gets the core to the core of it. So we are in a tricky spot as firefighters because the fire fee does help stabilize our funding. And like there's some pretty significant cuts that would happen if we don't have the fire fee. On the other side of it, this is kind of the perpetual issue we continue to have as we get wrapped up into these general fund dollars as far as how they're going to allocate those. And then our name always gets brought up as far as like, we're going to cut a station, we're going to cut an engine. We have to do this to save, to be able to, how they're going to appropriate their general fund dollars. That's the frustration on our end of like, we want to lose significant services, or we have to advocate against the library or other services that Eugene is supporting.
It seems like it'd be easier since Springfield, and Springfield's not having this problem right now. They're not having to put a thing. So if you have the 2 fire departments and they've joined together, they've merged, why not take them out of the city's control in both cities and just create, like other places in Oregon, Tualatin and places like that have a fire district. So it's a separate bill on your taxes, and then the city has it doesn't fall under the city's. I guess they don't have their finger on it all the time because they have all these things to support, and people want their parks and they want their library and all that. But I bet if you put it to a vote of people, most people, I'm just going to guess, that if you put public safety, and I consider fire as part of public safety too, if you put cops and firefighters on the ballot, that people are going to say we need those the most, that's going to be our priority right there. So you guys kind of always get on the short end of the stick, I guess.
Yeah, that comes down to our premise. So I just came in as union president, and my goal is to move us forward towards a fire district. It's a straightforward process. Your property taxes come out. It's a line item on there. It just says this is what goes to the fire department. So you know that your portion is covered. The other nice thing about that is everyone pays the same rate. So you have the same rate spread across both cities. You know what you pay, you know what you contribute, and you know that it actually does go to the fire department.
And that's not based on your square footage of your house.
No, that's based off a dollar value based per thousand, like most of your other taxes.
That seems more fair to me than if you're charging people with bigger houses more money for the firefighters, and it seems kind of. I think that would be a little bit. I don't know. That doesn't seem like doesn't seem like something that people are going to just jump on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is the district is straightforward and how it's paid for. You get to see it. You get to go like, this is what I put towards my fire district, and it's an easy process there.
Now, isn't that what like places like Lane Rural and some of the outlying areas? I think I was on McKinsey Fire District. That's what we had, a separate bill for just that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of rural places and smaller cities, they're already doing things like this. And if you consolidate that way, you've already consolidated services. Wouldn't it make it that much more efficient to just have everybody under one? This is weird that Eugene's having to charge a fee and Springfield doesn't right now. And so, I mean, it just seems kind of like another layer of bureaucracy that doesn't really need to be there.
I'll point into that layer of bureaucracy a little bit. So the payroll tax that passed in Eugene, if you're in Springfield, you don't get charged the payroll tax. But if you have training scheduled over in Eugene, they have people that will call you to see how long you're over in Eugene for training, and then tax you accordingly for that time that you're in Eugene.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
Talk about a nightmare.
Yeah. Our computers, we'll get the same computers in the engines on both sides, but there's 17 different firewalls on the Eugene computers, and so they'll actually run really slow on that side. Springfield, we've been able to streamline it over there, so our computers run decently quick in those engines. The Eugene side, it'll take 30 seconds to a minute sometimes to actually upload our maps. And so we're trying to get to a fire. We're just trying to upload those maps so we can see like where our hydrants are at, what our access points are, what the general building area looks like. Any of that, it can take quite a while to upload all that as we're trying to head to a fire because of those inconsistencies.
If you guys then had your own fire district, you'd have more control over too how that money's spent in terms of, because you're short people.
Mm-hmm.
Tell people about the stations. I mean, aren't you like you need to have a station a certain distance from a population area, and Eugene's kind of not you got some problems there.
We have some gaps. I mean, as the cities, particularly in Eugene, starts to spread out west and north there, those are areas where we have troubles in response time. So like our response time on average throughout the whole department is over 7 minutes. National standard that you shoot for is under 4 minutes. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is oxygen flow to the brain. So when someone has a cardiac arrest or a traumatic event, we have to get there to reoxygenate the brain and not lose brain cells that way. So under 4 minutes is the time that we have to do that. After 4 minutes, you start to get brain cell death. The other reason for that is our fires burn a lot hotter. So within 5 minutes these days, a whole room and contents fire will get to a point that it's not tenable for someone to be alive in. So we have to get there in a quick amount of time to knock these fires down to actually have the success that we need. Used to be in the old days, fires would take 20 minutes for them to actually take off. But with all the plastics we have in materials today, it's so quick that we have to get there fast. Otherwise, we'll lose more of the structure.
So to get to that 4 minutes, ideally, you would need to have how many more stations in Eugene right at this moment?
We would need to add 3 more stations.
What about Springfield?
Springfield is actually properly covered at the moment. They've looked at addressing one of the stations, Station 4, as potentially moving that as far as growth is. But Station 4 is the busiest station in Springfield. So we could look at even addressing call volumes in Springfield at what that might look like and adding additional resources.
So when this first came out, was the idea, were they talking about fully funding the fire department and then concerns about library, and what was going on with that? Do you know?
When they formed the merger piece?
No, when this first came out, when we first started talking about this need for the fee, was it pitting library against fire department against parks, and we're going to shut down the parks to keep the fire department going? Yeah, what kind of update people on what that story is all about?
Yeah, so the fee came about as an alternative way to be able to help generate funds towards the fire department and to have like specific funds that way. So it came out of that. What ended up happening this last year is during the budget discussions, they went ahead and allocated the fire department $8 million to be able to keep stable the resources that were happening there, with the anticipation of potentially passing this fire fee. Fire fee is supposed to generate $10 million. So what essentially is happening is they'll drop our allocation of $8 million from the general fund and then put that fire fee in there. And so that's where that 80%, 20% piece that people have been hearing about comes in, where 80% of that money is going back into the general fund. And then we just get the 20% on top of that. This is confusing. It's difficult to try to
what a nightmare. I mean, why not just be up front and go, I love the idea. I think you need to talk more about this fire district idea, because then I think then people look and it's right there on your bill. You don't have this, here's 80, because no wonder people are having an issue with this, is because so you're taking 80 here, you're putting it over here, now we're taking it from Sam and putting it over here in this place. It's like, so talk to me about what would it take. So say somebody puts a referendum on and the vote comes out no. What do you guys need to do to get it going so you could actually do a fire district? What would that look like and how would that start?
So the point we're at now is we really need the cities to come together and actually be like, yes, we want to move towards a fire district. Last summer, there was a report done that came out and gave several different ideas of how to move forward. There's either the breakup of the merger, there's a continuation with the current setup that we have. There's what's called an intergovernmental agency or an intergovernmental entity as another option, or there's the fire district. Fire district, very clear-cut model, but is not as popular in both city sides for each own individual reasons.
Okay, so it's not very popular with who? The city council and leadership, or the city people?
The city councils and leadership.
Why don't they like the fire district idea?
There's multiple different reasons it comes down to, but ultimately I think the cities want to be able to have control over their fire departments. So.
Well, that leaves us both speechless.
Yeah.
Anything we say from here on out will get both of us in trouble. What, in terms of, in your opinion, in terms of service-wise for the people of Eugene, Springfield, is the fire district going to give them better service, or is it going to be, do all four examples, when they did that study, do all four of them come out with the same basic outcome?
Not necessarily. So a divorce would cost millions of dollars per side.
The divorce sounds like a stupid idea.
It's a terrible idea. It would be a huge public safety risk if that happened. There's talks if that happens, Springfield would potentially cut a station on their side, so you'd have less response reliability, which is a concern. Because like if you just have a basic house fire in Eugene, and we call it basic because it's a straightforward, that's our bread and butter, that's what we need to do, that's what we understand. That requires 4 engines in a truck. Springfield has 4 engines in a truck. So you're taking all of your resources out for one house fire in Springfield.
Right.
But since we have Eugene there as well, merged department, what ends up happening is Springfield's able to respond to that fire. We then pull Eugene resources over. We can cover the whole area and do that. That doesn't mean the system still isn't extremely busy and we still have a lot of call volume we have to cover in Eugene. Not to mention we haven't talked about medic units. Medic units are running constant. I mean, the shifts I've been running on medic units, you're up for 24, 48 hours straight.
So tell him like your shift. What is yours? What would an average guy like you? I mean, you're above average guy, let's say. But what would your shift look like? Because you guys you're working. I've already read up a little bit on this, but you got there's some issues with shifts and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we work just under 2,600 hours a year. That's our kind of base hourly that we have for the year. With that, our schedule's set up with 24 hours on, 72 hours off, 48 hours on, 72 hours off.
Okay.
We did that because we moved from 24 on, 48 off. And people were getting so tired after those 24s that they weren't able to recuperate in those 2 days off. We were trying to get 3 days off so they could at least have some recuperation. A lot of people to recuperate anyway when they're off shift with that third day, so then they can go back on shift and actually be effective when they're back on shift. Call volume hasn't done anything but increase. I mean, in the last 5 years, I think it's gone up 22%. And so it just keeps getting more and more. So those shifts. Shift changes at 8 o'clock. We come in. The idea is to be able to check out your rig that you're on, to do the appropriate checks, make sure you have what you need on there, check on with the crews, off-going crew. When I was downtown, I started on the basic life support unit, which is one of the ambulances out there. Very busy unit. You're just a basic EMT. You're just trying to get people to the hospital. Jumped in as a firefighter is my next role, firefighter, paramedic. Worked downtown for 3 years. Medic 1, you get on at 8 a.m. in the morning, and there's sometimes you wouldn't necessarily be back to the station until 8 a.m. the next day for shift change. So we could run over 20 up to 30 calls a day.
So when you look at these, you said there's 4 options they came up with this study. The closest to a fire district would be this intergovernmental agreement. Does that still give both cities some kind of control over the fire department?
Correct.
So can I ask you, and I know I don't want to get you in trouble, so I don't want you to get you have parents and they'll be mad at me for getting fired, but what does it matter if you have a fire district? They're going to buy all that equipment for that fire district. There's some kind of a purchase thing that goes on, so the city doesn't have that responsibility anymore, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
So it would be its own district and separate from the city. Is it back when Peace Health was downtown Eugene and it was leaving, and I remember Eugene got all mad. And they wanted a hospital, and the whole thing was, we need to have a hospital in Eugene. And it's like, well, if you have a hospital in Eugene or Springfield, they're like one big city, really. Mm-hmm. Does it really matter where it is? But it was this idea of having this, it has to be in Eugene. And is that what the two cities, is it? I guess for me, the question, if I was a taxpayer, because I'm getting tons of people on here just talking about how Oregon's corrupt and more taxes, and we're tired of Oregon taxes. I don't know that their fee is going to have a big, wonderful response from people. Even I think it's not a lot of money, but if that doesn't pass, then are you guys then get cut, or do they have to cut the library, or what do they do? If the fee's going, here's what, I'm not stating this right. If there is a referendum, because the fee is going to start, if the referendum comes on, kills the fee, then what happens at that point?
Yeah, so that would be up to council to determine where they want to make those cuts. That was part of that Monday presentation during the work session, to be what would those cuts look like. If the fire department were to have cuts to it, it could look like anything from cutting like cahoots, cutting the hazmat team, potentially cutting an engine, cutting a station, or brownouts that would happen over an extended period of time.
And what firefighters are betting on, or you guys are betting on, is if you went to the public and said, here's what we're going to fund with fire services, and this is what it's going to cost you, more than likely the voters are going to say, we like that idea, we know what we're paying for.
That's what I'd hope, and that's why I'm out here now, to be able to share that message of just going like, we have another option. There's literally one that's been studied. It's on the table. It's been replicated throughout the country. There's a lot of examples of it here in Oregon, and that is a fire district, and we can move that direction. And I think it's a really easy sell to the community to go, if you want your tax dollars to actually go just to the fire department, the fire district is the option that you want.
Because you kind of feel like you're getting pitted up against the library and the parks and all the other services that go on, when maybe everything doesn't get to be running at full bore. If you're having financial debt, it's like, well, we all have to do when we have budget cuts, we have to cut things. We don't get to have everything we want. But you guys, in terms of safety, especially because really, I still think this way. Like a fire department, you put out fires. No. Yes, you do, but your biggest job is medical stuff. I bet more. How much time do you guys spend running to my house when I have a heart attack versus putting out fires? Do you know? I didn't.
I think it's over 90% of our calls are EMS calls.
So this is like totally a safety. When they looked at those 4 plans, including your taxing district, which provides the most public safety?
Fire district.
So shouldn't that be the overwhelming piece?
Yeah.
For safety, I'm sorry, Eugene and Springfield, you don't get to have your own little fire department, but you have a fire district now, like a lot of other places do. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what are the voters? Here's Karen Ott on here, as if people can afford anymore. But if Karen, let me ask you, any of these people that are commenting, if you knew that you were paying for a fire district and that's where the money was going directly to them, would you feel better about that? That would be an interesting thing for people to see. And Randy Groves, the former fire chief of Eugene Springfield, is a Eugene City Councilor. How did he vote on that, on the fee? Do you know?
Yeah, he voted against the fee. He, along with Mike Clark, wanted to send it to the vote of the people. And I mean, I won't speak for Randy, but I know he's been a big proponent for fire districts. So,
right. And Randy is the guy. We tried to get him on here tonight, but everybody's got that.
Busy man.
He's busy, and everybody else has the flu and all that. So we will have Randy on here sometime and really talk with him. So Randy and Mike Clark voted to send this before the people, which is what I would agree with. Let the people decide. But then once that referendum was put out there, then if it died, you guys would lose funding, but you'd go in immediately or start working now on a district. What's that timeline look like for you, Brett?
Yeah, so that's what we're working on now, is just trying to get the message out there to the community that a fire district is a good option, because at the moment is within city council's purview to be able, the governance board itself too, to be able to decide like which direction they want to take. We just haven't had that clear direction yet. So I'm going out to the public now to be like, pressure your counselors and be like, I want a fire district because I want to know my tax dollars are actually going to the fire district.
Do you know how much it would cost? Like, did they, I mean, this is really early and I don't know. I didn't ask you this ahead of time. Brett's being really good trying to help educate me as we go. But do you know how much it would cost to set up a fire district for Eugene Springfield? What the average cost would be? Would they have an idea?
Yeah, so they've kind of looked at some cost measures to it. We haven't been able to go in exactly how much it would cost. The one issue that we're coming up against is compression. And so that's based off that more laws than I fully understand with it. But essentially what would happen is the cities would have to concede some of their general fund revenue that they get from property taxes to be able to fund that district option. So basically some of that general fund that you're contributing to would actually then go just to the fire district.
Do they have to keep it there, and can they control that? I mean,
yeah, it would have to go to the fire department.
It has to go to the fire department.
Correct.
So that's where they lose some of their control. So if there's a certain amount, if you start a fire district, a certain amount from each city has to go to help fund that at the basics, then you guys that would be part of your budget. And then you would tax on top of that to the people through this fire district tax. Is that correct?
So the tax itself would most likely in some areas hit that compression cap. Difficult stuff for me to even understand, but essentially what it'd be is that you would pay that, and so not all of what you pay now in city taxes would actually go to the city. Then you might actually have a slight reduction in that area to then make up for that actual fire district tax.
So how long until you guys would like to have this going? Are you going to wait to see if a referendum comes up? I think
I'm working on it right now, so I would like to see this sooner than later. We are so busy. It is a life safety issue that we do not have the resources that we need. I mean, here's another thing. So 2020, when the wildfires took off and the Labor Day fires, we burned almost 1 million acres in several days.
yeah.
I was up on the Beachy Creek fire outside of Salem.
You were?
Yeah, so
Wow.
I calculated that fire to move at 2.66 acres per second. Imagine that in the South Hills.
Yeah.
Our only opportunity to actually get there and stop that is if we have the resources to address it early, which we don't now. We are busy. We're overtaxed on what we are able to actually do. I mean, our job is to respond on calls. We're going to be busy. That's fine. Like, that's what we do. But at the same time, we need to have the resources to actually properly provide for the people what they pay for. Like, your taxes should be going to an effective fire department, and it is currently not.
So Brett, when you set up a fire district, there's a board, and is that made up of community members, and how does that work? Do you know?
Yeah, so a board is created, and so then community members can run for those elected positions. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it would essentially be like, you're voting for city council kind of thing, but you're actually voting for the fire board. So they would fill those positions. So that board would then be the oversight for the fire district, and they would make sure that the funds coming in and how those are proportioned, and making sure the fire district is working for the people.
So Brett, would it be? I mean, now I'm just I'm just throwing ideas out there to see how they stick. I like talking to you. This is kind of fun.
It's been good.
Yeah. What if you guys did, instead of Eugene Springfield, if you included Crow and Lane Rural and McKinsey and all those departments, brought everybody together to create, a Lane County or a Lane County fire district that included everybody? Isn't that what Tualatin's kind of like up in Tualatin? It takes in Beaverton, Tualatin, place like that. Because it seems like the more, like anything, the more people you bring into a thing, then you've got representation. And fire is not, well, it is. I didn't know Eugene was so ill prepared with some of this stuff, but it's like, fire doesn't, it's not going to be any different in Eugene than it is in Springfield. So if you have this whole big district, you have everybody involved in that. It seems like that would, in the end, would lower the cost of services. I would wonder.
Yeah, so that's the one thing about the district. When you set that initial rate, that is the permanent rate that's set. So it is a natural progression for districts to kind of grow outwards and to get more area. And that allows for just kind of nice continual growth to be able to capture that extra revenue for the district. But it also allows for new revenue to be able to increase resources and to be able to better cover the area. Another issue that's happening now is volunteer rates are dropping. So a lot of these outlying areas are trying to deal with that. And so one way to do that is if you have a bigger district to be able to cover that, you have more resources, people get better coverage at a better rate.
And then you take in, like, a McKinsey Fire District joins in with you guys, and they used to have a really cool program up there where they had people who were learning, guys and gals who were learning to be firefighters would live up there and stay. And so you had 24-hour coverage when you really didn't pay for it or deserve it. you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a typical thing for a lot of the rural departments. I love Chief Busich up there. He's a great. I work with him on the overhead teams.
He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, I love him. But yeah, when we look at that, that's some of those models that some of those areas are able to provide that coverage. McKinsey does a great job up there. But when we look long term, like, what does that look like? Some areas are going to be like, we need better coverage. That's when we start kind of growing out. We can't do that until we ourselves become a district.
So the fee takes effect when? Do you know?
The discussion I heard on it was in July, but it depends on the referendum.
Okay, and the people are already starting the referendum and gathering signatures?
There's been talk about it. I don't know if there's any official signature gathering at this time. So
okay, so just for my audience, and by the way, people are coming out and going, "This is a great topic, Rick." People like talking about it. Yeah, well, it's important. We just saw what happened in Southern California, that when they weren't prepared. And
that's the reality here. I mean, you think of like how close Holiday Farm Fire got. I mean, it was a wind change away from continuing through Springfield.
Yeah, I was evacuated. I lived in Camp Creek, 4 miles out of
Oh yeah,
Springfield,
very close
and
then.
I was, and people were going, well, you were 7 miles away. Well, you know what? There was a woman in Vida who went to bed, and it was up at McKinsey, and she went to bed, and 2 hours later she woke up, and it was outside of her door because it was moving that quickly. It wouldn't take much to take the Thurston Hills out, take the Coburg Hills out, and it just wipes through there. So we've seen it happen in California. And if you're not prepared, you can sit around and, the bottom line is that, to me, it's like, well, you can worry about who has control of it, but the public, it's supposed to be about saving lives and protecting people. And that should be the ultimate concern, not whether Eugene or Springfield has a fire department, or that they're losing control of that they're going to better manage you than another district, than another board that's set up specifically for that. So
our priority is life safety. We just give us a chance to be effective in saving lives. Here is what we're asking for.
So what should people watching this or listening here, do? What can they do? Because I think I'm seeing a lot of frustration. What do people do? So, Terry says it doesn't sound like a tax. It is a tax. Terry, it's my show. I can say this. I 100% agree. We put fee on, like fee is any better. It's still, and it's not a ton of money, but is it efficient? Is it going to really solve the problem? And she's saying the same thing. What's next? We're out of money. But Terry, would someone such as yourself, if you saw that there was a district that was managing everything and it was not under, done the way it is right now, would you be more open to that? That's the question I guess people need to do. So anyway, Brett, what do you suggest people do? Is there some place they can get a hold of folks like you that if they had questions or they want to get involved, or they, need more information? Are you going to be going out speaking? Kind of give people some ideas.
Yeah. So I think the number one thing is to reach out to your city leaders and tell them that you would like a fire district. You want to know your tax money goes. You want a fire district. That would be the first thing. We have the IAFF 851 website up. That's a way to get a hold of me. If you're interested in asking more questions, I'm open to those. It's a confusing process in all regards. I can totally respect that. I think our priority is to realize, I know our priority is to realize that public safety is at risk, and we want to be able to respond appropriately with your tax dollars. And the only way we can do that is if you actually are able to pay us directly, and we're able to actually then provide that service at a much more cost-effective rate.
And just so people understand too, that new district would be under public rule because it would be a public board. It's not, they're not setting up a business of a firefighting business. This is another public entity, but but instead of your money being split between library and parks and police and all these other things, you're paying for fire services. I bet if they did this, a police district, people would buy into that really quickly because you have a little more control of your tax dollars that way. Ron says the fire department needs to be out of the ambulance business.
Yeah, unfortunately what's happening now is private ambulances are not being as successful. So what we're seeing is actually fire departments, the public fire departments start to pick up ambulance services just because it is falling apart on the private side. So unfortunately, that's not an option we have going forward. The thing is that we have really good medics. We have a really good EMS system. We just need more medics on the street to be able to appropriately respond to calls and be able to provide that top tier service.
So if you're a kid out there and you're trying to figure out what to do with your life, good God, I got an idea for you.
Come join the fire department.
Be a medic and join the fire department. And Eileen says, thank you for your service to helping people, and we need to know what's happening. So thank you for the inside information. See, Brett, I think the good thing that you're doing is you empower people when you give them information. And I think we're seeing that in all kinds of things right now. I won't get political, but all kinds of things. When you talk about this stuff and tell them what you're thinking, yes, this is what you think would be best as a firefighter, but they want to hear that, and then they can go to the city and the city can give their input on what they feel is the reason they need to keep it under city control. And then the public can decide what they want to do. So I have another question. This is the last question for everybody. That has nothing to do with all the things we've talked about. So tell people, why do you do what you do?
As a firefighter?
Yeah.
Oh man, it is a fun job. I mean, you get to come to work. You're highly trained in being the most knowledgeable person in the most chaotic moments. And so you get to show up and be able to help people out. I mean, save lives, put out fires. It is a very rewarding career. And I know that can sound selfish in some way, but the opportunities I have to be a part of people's like worst moments and bring a little bit of glimmer of hope to their lives. Um, that was an amazing experience. I don't even know how to explain it in words, but it's one of those things that I get to come to work and work with really cool people and do some really cool things. And it's just a great opportunity.
You know, I remember a friend of mine, she got in a car accident out on Camp Creek, and I was pulled up right after that. And, you know, you guys were there and you're hanging out and doing this. And she saw me and she goes, and her leg was broken and she was in a lot of pain. And she's like, get Rick. I need Rick in here. And you guys were so cool. They brought me in. They said, and she just wanted to hold my hand while she was sitting in the car and say a little prayer with her. But I watched you guys interact with her and the other person in the car. And it was like a calming force that I think you took her level of of not frustration, but just fear, and just brought it down like this. And then it was kind of honestly, it was kind of a beautiful thing to see, when you're watching something like that and you're going, that's who I want to be there. Because you're there at people's very worst moment in life. And it may be their last worst moment in life. And you may be the last face that they see. And it's nice to know, people like you are out there. I think all of us really appreciate that. Also talk about, isn't this like a genetic disease in your family?
Yeah. So I actually grew up in the back of an engine. My mom and dad are both on the volunteer fire department out in Crow Valley together. And they put a car seat in the back of the engine, and I'd go on fire calls when I was little. Mom was an ER nurse, and dad joined on the Springfield fire in 1986 and did that, volunteered out there at the same time. And so I grew up in the fire department. I got to see the growth into where it is today. It's a cool career, and it's a passion.
You had no choice.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? Ron says, thank you for being a firefighter. I'm from SIO. Our volunteer fire department is suffering because of regulations. We can't get enough volunteers.
I hear you, Ron. I mean, I grew up and I started out at Lane Fire Authority, and that's an issue they have out there. They're a South Battalion area, which covers a lot of that, like Gimple Hill, Crow, down next to, not quite into Lorain area. They have one volunteer that covers that area.
Yeah, and when you get too many regulations, then people can't. It's a big ask for somebody to volunteer like that. You know what I mean?
It's tough. And that's why a lot of departments are moving more towards career fire departments. And that's where districts come in, is to be able to share that cost out amongst more people. And so that you can actually, have a decent rate and still get a really good service.
Hey, Brett, anything you haven't said that you think you should say? Now's your option. Of course, we will have you back. And I want to get Randy Groth here, because I think we should keep people really informed and involved in this. And for the folks out here watching this thing, don't get, I know you're frustrated, and I see your comments, and but realize that there's people working to look at other options that might be, better. And but I'll encourage them after you. But is there anything you're not saying that you need to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who's tuned in and listened, and who listens to this in the future. Our fire department needs help. It's needed help for a while. We haven't gotten that. But I'm here to say that we have an answer to that. And that's a fire district. And so I lean on you all for support to be able to go. If you want your tax dollars to go straight to the fire department, you want a fire district, and to be able to advocate for that and educate other people. I'm here to be transparent. I want to make sure we get the information out there. I want to share that information as much as I have. So I do appreciate your support as we go through this process.
So if you could, work up some, if you guys can, get some numbers so people can actually see. And I know it's confusing because some of the money would stay in there, but you guys have smart people with you. You can figure out what that's going to look like for people, of what they're going to have to pay on top of what they're already paying to the city. That would be a really helpful number, so people could go, okay, that $25, I'm willing to pay 25 versus this if I know that it's in my own entity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's my goal. I'm just jumping in here. I want to be able to be as straightforward about this process as possible. So that'll be coming to be able to go, this is how much you're expected to pay. So you have those numbers and you get to, hopefully at some point here, come to a vote and be able to go, yeah, this is what I want. Or, you can choose to go another direction. But I hope you at least take the time to look at the potential for a fire district.
All right, Brett Deeden, thank you for being with us. Thanks for what you do, man.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, see you later, buddy.
See ya.
So here's my message to you guys. So if this is your frustration, I see it in the comments and everything like that. The worst thing you can do is just get frustrated and angry. The best thing you can do is put that frustration into some positive action. So what do? First of all, you call each of those city councilors and you make sure that you're kind. You're not screaming at them. Nobody listens to screamers. If you call me up and say, Rick, you're a dumb shit asshole, all that, I'm done. You're nothing to me. I'm not going to listen to you. Now they have to pretend to listen to you because they're city councilors. But if you really want them to listen, you have to be kind. You have to have your arguments. It can't just be, I can't afford another tax. You have to get something that they're going to be able to hear. And then you do it and you write a letter and you write the same letter, but you just change the headline and you personalize each one to each city councilor. And then you send those to those city councilors and then follow it up with a phone call. Now, remember, Randy and Mike did not vote for this. They wanted this to go to the people. So don't write them and get all angry if you don't want this fee tax thing. But then also lend them your support. And that's how and I would say this is for all the people in Eugene and Springfield. And then you rural people, look into this, see what you could save. Because if you're having a hard time getting volunteers, this could be something that could really help you when that fire happens. Because if you don't have volunteers coming to the fire, it's going to be you and your wife in a garden hose. And that doesn't work real well when you have a house fire or something going on. So thanks for letting us. And also Brett just noticed me. Greg Evans, City Councilor Greg Evans, also voted against or for putting this on a referendum against just implementing the fee/tax. So it was Greg Evans, it was Randy Groves and Mike Clark. So those people, if you support their position, let them know, give them a warm fuzzy, you know what I mean? Because we've got to start taking action, and it's our community. It's your community. It's not mine anymore, but it's your community. And, I think if you watch the national scene, you realize that there's a shift and we the people are back in charge. So take charge. Share this this is what you can do for us too, is share this on your page with anybody in your neighborhood. Just share it to your Facebook pages and let people see it so they know this is going on. We're going to be doing more of this so you guys are informed and you know what you're doing. People always ask me, where can I get my news? Where can I get my news? Well, not from the news. So that's how it goes. I'm Rick Dancer. Thanks for being here. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk with Senator Bruce Starr, he's a state senator, about some of the shit going on in Salem. God, what a nut house. So it should be a really interesting show, and that will be live. So we'll take your comments live as well. All right. Have a good night. See you later. Bye-bye.